Men begin the adventure thinking on many subjects, but eventually it gets narrowed down to just one. Attention, all mystics, there is but one thing to think about. That's all, just one. That's right, just one. You heard me, just one. And the truth be closer told, it's not so much a subject to think about as it is, well, thinking about it is simply not the best way to think about it. You'll see. You'll get the hang of it. Who is everyone's first love? Habit. Who that you know will be by your graveside? How can you be guaranteed that you will be given a grave site? Think on these things and then tell me, who is your first love now? Threatened to be overrun, the soldier sized up his situation, saw that he had but one bullet left, and suddenly was able to do that for which he had so long trained. Aimed the single shell at his mirror. One man decided it would be best not to talk about how he physically felt. He later concluded it would be beneficial not to speak of how he emotionally felt. Following that came his determination that it would be good for him not to say aloud what he was thinking. And I must tell you straight away that these three simple decisions changed this man's life entirely. That is, had he been able to execute them. You can lead a phantom horse to water with the certainty that no water need be provided. In the land of those who know, no services of Ghostbusters are required. Once the prisoner escaped and realized what had occurred, his only comment was, "Well, I'll be damned. Is that all that was holding me? I'll be damned indeed, fair prisoner. I'll be damned indeed." The minds of men came up with the ideas of physical demons, literal forces of evil, and psychological ills to help deal with the situation of being bound by invisible chains. The key to the lock, staring them right in the face, the source of the very assistance. What is a man? A general physical disposition and words. There's your formula. As always, even while the ordinary are not going to reach the destination, they face in the general right direction. For an example, their idea of humility and its benefits. But their perception of it compared to its reality is like the difference between a naked person and the dressing rooms in a department store. Tyrants and fools attempt to suppress. The enlightened seek to abandon. How a man who knows the mind knows that he's lying? There's a momentary lag in the mind's response to whatever it is that it's responding to. The philosophically bent still don't have it exactly right when they say that each man creates his own perception of reality. It's actually that reality creates each man's perception of reality. Simple once you get a grip on it. One man's math of it. Without talk, there is no thought. Without thought, there is no mind. Without mind, there is no me. Ergo, I'm all talk. Another brief dialogue. A man who sleeps alone sleeps well. I'm guessing here that you're not talking in terms of other physical bodies. You're guessing right, old chum. Expanded version of supra dialogue. A man who awakes each morn, aware that there is no one there, both slept well and now arises well. And this time the second voice had nothing to say. One man kept a lying, babbling, insane parrot. And worse than that, it wasn't even his. And worse still, it wasn't even a real bird. Yikes! Out! Damn Polly. One man says he looks upon the ideas of activities such as this as a kind of bone marrow transplant for the mind. What is me? Voices from a void, sounds with no source. A nothingness camouflaged to seem a somethingness. Me. From our fact file. More non-standard transportation information. Under certain conditions, your vehicle will go further on an empty tank. Okay, for you who are getting close, under all conditions. And also a non-standard temporal tip. When time begins to slow down, you're close to Istanbul. Both of these facts are basically the same fact. A boy asked his father, if the mind is a train and thoughts are its tracks, then there ain't no then, corrected the elder. One man decided, and who's to say he's off the mark, that all the mystical literature is fiction for those with no taste for real fiction. The correct understanding of human ills is simple, and it is this. You can set a broken leg, but you cannot give a ghost a haircut. One man pictures his final state of enlightenment as, yoo-hoo, anybody home? The way yet another man reckons it. There is no mind, only thoughts. There is no me, only my mind. Figure it out for yourself. The ordinary in their believing in the literal sacrificial deaths of their enlightened heroes miss the point. For those who awaken to their own nature realize there is but one thing a man can give up, and that is not his body, not even his soul, his non-physical individuality, but his delusion that he has one. The simple dream of their wise men having such extraordinary experiences that they are carried away from mundane existence into supernatural realms, when what actually occurs is that such men's minds move from the realms of illusion and imagination into the simple one of mundane reality. One man imagines his ultimate awakening as the death of his associate, assistant, partner, twin brother, other room, whatever. One man's most recent, persistent question is, does the mind actually deserve to be called a thing? Does it have an existence justifying such labeling? He looked in the mirror, and aha! No one was there. How to know that you're really, finally, for sure, making progress is when you have little interest in hearing new descriptions of the problem and are now only interested in the solution. The head of a mystical order so described things to an interested man. The benefit of living here in a monastic setting is that everything you seek is always right here. And the man pondered this and replied, but is that not also true regarding ourselves? And with no pause, the mystic replied, indeed, sir, you are correct. What preferences do a non-present guest at a banquet have? None. What more need be noted? A certain man finally stopped and asked himself, why, throughout the mystical literature, when opposition to a man's struggle for enlightenment is pictured, it's always, such as with dragons and demons, in the guise of imaginary beasts? A boy asked his father, what is finally superior to? Never, he replied. Which starts with N, which rhymes with nothing, which ends in G, which rhymes with C, as in see, there's nothing there after all. One man thinks of his supreme liberation as dinner for one. He stopped his poking about in the landfill, leaned on his poking stick, and said to the visitor, "There's this one little thing that if you know real good and remember pretty regularly, makes everything else you know meaningless. Totally, absolutely meaningless." He spat down in the trash, squinted off in the distance, and added, "If you know what I mean." One man finally realized that things certainly go better around my house when I'm not there. If you know what I mean.